Well, Ferguson wasn't the only place where protests broke out overnight. In Oakland, people took to the streets, as they did in New York City and here in Washington, D.C. RT correspondents Lindsay and Manila are following those stories. I talked with them earlier and first asked Lindsay about people taking to the streets in California.
Well, the night began peacefully, and of course, as it wore on, it became violent. About 1,000 people turned up, at one point shutting down Interstate 580. Now, there were reports that the California Highway Patrol officers had rocks and bottles thrown at them, and that Oakland police themselves, several officers, in fact, were injured. Now, in the entire altercation last night, 39 people were reportedly arrested on suspicion of crimes such as assaulting officers, vandalism, burglary, and resisting arrest. Now, according to the mayor's office, there were groups of people in pockets of Oakland graffitiing walls and things, and various businesses, also breaking into businesses in downtown Oakland and even setting fire to garbage cans. But really, that was the extent of it last night. Now, of course, with the shutdown of Interstate 580, it caused a huge headache for a lot of drivers. And, you know, that was the real worry in Oakland, is that it's a car-centered town. And so they didn't really know what to expect as far as where these protesters would go. But there you have it. They headed right for the interstate and got the job done, shutting that down. So
what about plans for tonight? Any plan for protests that you know of?
Yeah, well, Twitter is turning up some clues now. Reportedly around 5 p.m. tonight, it's been said that police are preparing for more protests. Of course, that's right when it starts to get dark. So you can imagine drivers in the Oakland area are trying to get home from work as soon as possible, because that's right at rush hour and everyone there uses a car. So if the protests are going to center on downtown or the interstates, it's important for people in that area to remember to just stay off the streets as much as possible. But yeah, that's what they're preparing for tonight. And we'll see as the week progresses if there's more planned in Oakland, but it's definitely a hotbed for this protest.
Absolutely. Lindsay, thanks for that. Manila, there was a protest in New York. Where did that happen?
Hi there, Ben. Yes, last night in New York, estimates of 1,000+ people protested from Union Square up to Times Square. From there, they went on up to the FDR and converged with several hundreds more, taking over vital bridges that connect the outer boroughs into Manhattan. Hundreds on the RFK Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Triborough and Manhattan bridges, chanting slogans like "Hands up, don't shoot." Whose streets? Our streets. You say get back, we say fight back. They snarled traffic, as you can imagine. So by 1:30 a.m., authorities officially shut down all of the bridges. A notable moment from New York last night, though, Police Commissioner Bill Bratton had fake blood or some sort of red substance splattered on him while he was walking through Times Square. Protesters oftentimes broke through barricades and probably shook the nerves of some people, but overall the night ended peacefully with only 2 arrests. One of those was the man who splattered Commissioner Bratton, and the other man was a guy who threw a bottle at a policeman, hitting him in the head, Ben.
Pretty big crowds out there in New York. As for D.C., there was a march and a protest last night here in D.C. Was this a peaceful demonstration?
You know what, Ben? In stark contrast to what transpired in New York City, here in D.C., when I arrived on the scene at about 10:30 last night in front of the White House, there were approximately 100 or so protesters. It was just following President Obama's public address to call for calm and a peaceful resolution. We were at the North Lawn. Police and uniformed Secret Service were in force, but the mood was actually quite somber. They were initially singing hymns and uniting in prayer in Michael Brown's memory. People were carrying signs ranging from justice for Mike Brown to I love Ferguson to demilitarize police. Shortly thereafter, more protesters converged from every direction. They had a whole different vibe to them. They brought in a different energy. So let's take a look to what happened last night. Middle of the night here in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. Hundreds are gathered here in protest right in front of the White House just hours after the decision to not indict Officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death of unarmed teen 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. As you can see behind me, there are easily 200, maybe 300 people. People are angry, people are chanting, but it's relatively calm. They're chanting, hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter, Jim Crow, hell no.
We say Jim Crow, we say hell no.
Black Lives Matter, and if we look at, over-policing in communities, prison pipeline, and all kinds of issues, we see that we're not sure that, the systems that we're supposed to trust value black lives.
In a society that we are pushed to look at young black men as thugs or as people to be afraid of, and that's the whole point of what we're trying to change. So yes, there are going to be people who respond in that manner, but we're out here to actually get them to see that you should look at people as people. Black lives matter. All kinds of lives matter.
So far, you can hear the anguish of the crowd, but they are remaining very calm. They're trying to get the point across just moments after President Obama came onto live TV to talk about how there are better ways to handle this than looting and rioting.
Make some consequences for the police so that they'll be able to restrain themselves, and then people will act better if they know there won't be any type of retaliation.
So right now here in Washington, D.C., there's no signs of chaos, but people are definitely expressing their anger.
We say fight back!
We're going to look to see more as the week continues. From the White House in Washington, Manila Chan, RT.